Good morning. Welcome. I'm Larry Berglund. I'll be your facilitator this morning. This is our continuing series of podcasts and vodcasts on the subject of business management with a focus on sustainability and corporate social responsibility. One of the main players involved in CSR or sustainability is the role of the non-governmental organization, or NGOs as they're commonly referred to. There are many types of non-governmental organizations. They're very actively involved in ensuring workers' rights are protected, and they also are affiliated with natural resource conservation and on a global scale. So there can be domestic units, and they are generally affiliated with international groups of NGOs that support each other and tend to hold the corporate feet to the fire, so to speak. The roots of NGOs were based out of the Great Britain in the early 19th century in the abolition of slavery. So they've moved from some pretty significant social arenas into the business arenas today. And particularly in the late 60s and 70s, they emerged again in terms of awareness of business practices. And this also evolved into the 90s and the early parts of this century as we started to see a shift towards more offshoring and outsourcing, particularly with branded clothing products. And companies such as Kathy Lee Gifford, to use a famous example, was exposed to being outsourcing through a third party that was not meeting internationally accepted labor standards. So they were quickly improved, etc. So many examples of this. Nike sporting goods were on the cover of Life magazine in the mid-90s with their exposure of using child labor to stitch up soccer balls. So these have been largely eradicated in the large branded organizations, but there's still a role for NGOs today. And for supply management professionals, wouldn't fear NGOs, but you certainly want to be able to work with them. And if an organization has adopted a policy of fairness and transparency, there shouldn't be anything to hide from NGOs, but there does need to be a respectful management of that relationship. One of the cornerstones of NGOs is they should also have their own sense of legitimacy. They should have a board, put out annual reports, understand or share with their stakeholders where their funding comes from, etc. So there's a lot of need for legitimacy with NGOs. They certainly have a common theme in terms of looking at the distribution of wealth and working conditions across the globe. So wage disparity is certainly one of their hot topics. And it's just something to be aware of when you're looking at various issues to work with non-governmental organizations. The City of Vancouver, a few years ago, was faced with the BC Ethical Purchasing Group, who were advocating for the first policy in Canada for municipalities to adopt an ethical purchasing and fair trade goods policy. They were very successful with that because they aligned themselves politically. The supply management team at the City of Vancouver at the time was able to negotiate a working agreement with NGOs and with other stakeholders that led to a very successful implementation of that policy, which has been expanded beyond its original mandates as well. So politically, NGOs typically are very well connected with labor groups and politicians. There's a lot of positives for this as well, in terms of curbing sweatshop practices, for example, and eliminating exploitative labor practices, which occur in Canada and in foreign jurisdictions as well. They focus on the greater assurance of workers' rights will be respected regardless of where their borders are. They raise an awareness of business misdeeds. So again, it's nothing to fear. If you have an ethical business practice, they are not going to attack you in that sense. And it keeps supply professionals focused on their value chain. Understand who your first and second tier suppliers are, and it fits in very well with the supplier code of conduct. The supplier code of conduct typically adopt ILO standards and other conventions a lot of leading organizations have created. That's a brief overview of the role of non-governmental organizations in corporate social responsibility and sustainability that supply management needs to be aware of. We hope you've enjoyed this overview and look forward to hearing from you. And remember, we'd like you all to be able to answer, what have you done for your planet today? Thank you very much for your time this morning.